Hey, what's happening, team players? Bob here. Joe is out today. He's feeling a little sick, under the weather. So are the little kids. Not doing well myself here, but we're going to plow through. We're going to get going with a couple of Underdog best ball drafts here in a minute. Congratulations to everybody that messaged us over the weekend, came in on Monday, told us about your victories. We appreciate everybody in here. And let's get rocking here. There's a couple of things to keep in mind this week. We have a couple of really important games on the slate that are going to affect standings, and we want to keep our eyes on that. San Francisco. We want to keep our eyes on New England. We want to keep our eyes on Denver as well. So we're going to rock and roll here in just a minute. Let us pull up some Underdog lobby. Now, we just got a new contest out here, the Mitten 2. And the Mitten 2, we're not going to get any of those teams now with Kansas City. We're not going to get any of those teams now with the Detroit Lions. So we have to be really delicate in how we think about how we're going to build our teams here. And so when we get into it here, feel free to join in if you're able to. Sit back, relax. Mick, it's good to see you, man. How's it going? And we're just going to talk shop here today. We're going to build a couple of teams in the Mitten. Obviously, the Underdog contest, as you all know, are a little bit different than the DraftKings that we did on Monday. A lot of content creators have been doing both as well. And so it's just nice to see a little bit of everything and how to approach these different stacks and to see where we're going here. Now, on Underdog, I do think that it's going to be something to keep your eyes on when we look at some advanced rate pieces. Now on DraftKings specifically, you have to draft a tight end. Now, when we look at these Ram stacks, I really do think I'm very interested in taking, if we're able to build a full Ram stack here, guys, I'm very interested in taking a couple of those late round tight ends. We know that the Rams do like to use their tight ends quite a bit. And I think that as we look where they're used a lot, it's going to be something to keep our heads on. It's a little way to get different within these Ram stacks. I don't really like to overstack here in Underdog a lot, but I am going to keep my eye on those tight ends and see where they're going to take us. Mick, you got Puka, Kyron, Adams stack, and the 2-spot auto-drafted Stafford so close to a crazy team. I have seen those teams more when we go into the bigger contests like the Gauntlet or the $20 contest on DraftKings. I've seen less of them actually on the smaller contest with a bigger pool, like the Mitten with the smaller buy-in and the same kind of payouts. It's harder to get those because there's going to be a lot of players that aren't playing with that big money, and so you kind of have to be delicate about it. Like I was saying, there's a good chance here that because of the Kyron drafter here, that I'm not going to get Devontae Adams and I'm not going to get Matt Stafford, but I'm going to get at least one of them. And when I look here at this one, Mick there, Cook and Barkley there. Fair enough, Julian. Fair enough. So noticing that we're probably not going to get Stafford on the comeback, so we might hold off on a little bit of those stacks. The JSN and Devontae Adams team up there, not a huge fan of that. But as you can see here, guys, we're going to have to pivot. That's all right. No worries there. We've talked about pivoting into getting some New England Patriots here and there. We've talked about getting Houston. Now, I am a little bit concerned about there is a pathway still for New England to get that bye. And I do like to build Diggs occasionally, but I don't like to leave myself so vulnerable at the running back position. I do like Travis Etienne a lot. So with that, we see Travis Etienne just went. We're going to build out a Etienne, and we're going to get into Kittle. We're going to try to use Puka as our advanced piece there. Unfortunately, we couldn't get a stack in. Happens. You are here, Mick. I am glad to see you here. Now I see what your username is so that we can get in on it more. I love the build of James Cook Barkley. I'm really curious how you're going to build that out there, knowing that we have A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith already taken by the Josh Allen guy. Now, that's a little bit unique there, not having a running back necessarily if that gets to the Super Bowl. Curious how the Tank Bigsby kind of works out in that one. Pivot here from you is coming, I would bet. Now, when it comes to the Eagles players, I'm very hesitant for anybody out there watching right now. I'm very hesitant to mega stack Eagles. It's very easy to get through a mega stack of Eagles in most tournaments. Now, we haven't done a lot of Mitten 2 because it's just a contest that just came out yesterday. But doing a lot of the Mittens and doing a lot of the DraftKings ones, you're going to notice that the Eagles are very easy to build. And it's very, 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 very likely. And I know there are other people out there that have been sharing similar information to this, but it's very likely that if you're getting through the Eagles, almost all those Eagles are going to be in play. Now, the thing that concerns me about the Eagles is that when one player pops off, it's typically speaking that other players on that team are not popping off similarly at the same time. So it is something to keep your eyes on when it comes to building full Eagles stacks, making sure you have some teams that can pop off, unlike those Eagles, right? So, you know, if you're in a room and you're building that stack, be very cautious. You know, now number 3 here is going to pivot most likely into the Jacobs stacks as well. So we're going to pivot into Juwan Jennings. We're going to grab Brock Purdy here. Now, there is still a chance that Brock's going to get the bye. If it ends up being a Jaguars San Francisco Super Bowl, do I like Trevor Lawrence more or Brock Purdy more? I equally think that both of them could put up very similar stats in the Super Bowl. So what I'm looking for here is just looking at team defenses and seeing, well, which one is most likely to give me a good look at pass completions and passing yards. The Jaguars have been at times surprisingly good against quarterbacks, and San Francisco struggles. So you might want, if you're building one of these stacks with Brock Purdy and Jaguars and San Francisco, you might want to build out a Trevor Lawrence side of that ball too. Now, looking at the team down here at the 5 hole, we're looking at potentially a Seattle build with Derrick Henry on the opposite side. Now, if Derrick Henry ends up making it through to the Super Bowl, I see that as being something that could capitalize on Seattle there. Love the pivot here from you, Mick. Grabbing 3 Buffalo players, going to try to build out a Chicago on the other side, keep yourself alive. Makes a lot of sense to me. All right, we're going to try to queue up some Jags here. If we can't get the Jags, then what we're going to do is we're going to potentially get Ramondre. We'll see. Now, I do like the back end Chicago build. I've built a lot of Trevor Lawrence. I am quite invested in the Jags. Notice everybody kind of sticking in their own lane there. We have a New England, San Francisco Super Bowl. Now, here's the thing, guys. If you're building out a New England, San Francisco Super Bowl, now you'll notice that I don't have Christian McCaffrey. Now, Christian McCaffrey might be the piece that you need to win the Super Bowl if San Francisco ends up getting to the Super Bowl. But I think it's equally as important to grab one of those running backs that you think is going to pop off as well. I'm not quite sure New England is the piece if they're facing San Francisco, knowing that they do split those running back touches up. I'm a little bit hesitant on that. Now, like I said, I'm not a huge fan of going 2 quarterbacks. I said this on Monday. But when we're not sure about Purdy here, I do want to keep myself live for a possible play or pivot play. We're going to queue up. I feel that, MT. Jaguars used to be so free. Yeah, and that's the thing, though, too, Mick. When it comes to the tournaments that are happening on DraftKings right now still, it doesn't make sense as much to build the Jaguars as much as it did back a couple weeks ago. So 2 or 3 weeks ago, you could get all of the Jags like super free. Sit round 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 7, 8, 9, 10 in DraftKings, 8, 9, 10, 11. And keeping yourself aware of that. Did Blake Corum go? Yeah. Keeping yourself aware of that. But this is a new contest. And so knowing that it's a new contest, we're not going to see a lot of mega stacks of certain builds. So we have to keep ourselves aware that in the mitten 2, because it's new, we don't really have to worry so much about they used to be free. Same thing goes for Baltimore here, guys. It is not a done deal that the Ravens will win this game. Appreciate it, Joe. We love it too, MT. It is not a guarantee, guys, that that Baltimore wins. Now, are they potentially a better team than the Steelers? Yeah, the Steelers are dealing with a lot of injuries. We don't have DK Metcalf. But as a Steelers fan, they're one of those teams that is so different in the fact that you never know what team you're going to get. Now, when it comes to building them out, am I going to be as crazy building out some Steelers builds? No, but there is just as much of a likelihood that the Baltimore Ravens could shit the bed. And will they? Who's to say? But when we look at what could happen in this game, in the Steelers game specifically, right? Baltimore in the last 4 games has not been good against quarterbacks. In the last 4 games, Baltimore has been better against running backs, but still has the Steelers. Now, what will happen in this game, divisional matchup, week 18, it's going to be at Pittsburgh, right? And so when I look at it, do I think that the Steelers have a pathway to the Super Bowl? No. But if I get boxed out of whatever stack I'm trying to build, right? Like let's say I'm building up here with Josh Allen, and we see that he doesn't really have a running back except for Ty Johnson, Dawson Knox, but he's got some Green Bay Super Bowls available to him. So Green Bay, Buffalo is available to him. And ideally, that's going to be the one Super Bowl that he wants. Mine will be the Jaguars and Rams, but also I can also have Jaguars and or Jaguars Niners, but I can also have Jaguars Rams with Puka there. I do think that Puka is the best player to own. Obviously, going number 1 overall, but I do think that if the Rams advance, him and Adams are going to be those 2 pieces that you are going to want the most. And I don't think Stafford is going to be as mega relevant. But as we talked about on Monday, is that you want to have those 5. You want to have at least 5 players live. The more players you have live, the better it will be for advancing into the. See, I wanted an advanced piece there, but also Brenton Strange is available. Now, the likelihood for example, if the Niners make it and get the number 1 overall seed on the NFC side, my team will be a little bit lacking. Now, typically speaking, I'd like to get more running backs, but because I went so heavy in on the Jags anyway in this build, necessarily, like I said, it's not one that I really love, but knowing that I went really heavy into that Jags side, having Travis Etienne as my only one, they're a really high-performing offense. It is likely that 2 out of these 3 players, 3 out of the 5 players that you have here could go really well. Now, Mick, on your side, I love the back end Chicago. The back end Chicago is what the front end, Jaguars is. But look, we're looking at Jaguars and Chicago, and we're getting basically the whole team, right, from round 6 through round 10. So I think that there's some value there. We're going to rack up another one, guys. So if anybody wants to join in, we're going to rack up another mitten 2 right now. And also, and I know it's important to think about, and just like you saw Mick and I did there, pivoting when something doesn't go the way that you had planned it, right? When you go into these drafts and you're thinking about how you're going to build a team, you can go in with a specific strategy. You absolutely can. But I think what we want to think about, especially in the mitten 2, is thinking about positional value, but also thinking about these defenses that are going to be heading into the playoffs, right? Looking at Green Bay, Seattle, and New England specifically, they're allowing a lot of rushing attempts. So if I can get a running back against them, excellent. Denver, Baltimore, not offering as many rushing attempts over the last 4 games. Jacksonville not offering a lot of rushing attempts over the last 4 games. We look at the wide receivers, and we're looking at targets. Well, Jacksonville, Chargers, Baltimore, all offering a lot of targets over the last 4 games. Who's fourth? The Rams. So there is some cost benefit analysis to think about. Who do I not want wide receivers against? And this is one of those things where if Buffalo and Philly end up making it to the Super Bowl, wide receivers haven't scored fantasy points very much against Buffalo and Philly. So it is very likely that having both A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith, if Philly and Buffalo make it to the Super Bowl, is actually going to not get you as many points as you think it's going to get you. So keeping that in mind. Mick, nice. We're over here. It's 5-6. I feel like we're drafting regular best ball again, not playoff best ball, with me and Joe being at the end. But yeah, so looking at all those team statistics that we've looked at across the whole year and thinking about it again, like San Francisco, whoever plays San Francisco, Steelers, and Houston, we might want to queue up those tight ends. Those tight ends have been doing better recently. So all of those things to keep in mind as we start building our teams. All right. So we're going to queue up some things here, Mick. See what happens. And I'm not going to be mad if you steal my guys, but all right. So we are going to go Devontae and we are going to go Stafford. Like I said, I'm not a huge Stafford guy. But I do think that they do have one of the best chances to make it to the Super Bowl. Vegas thinks so too. And like I said, with Puka and Devontae Adams, when you're looking at Puka and Devontae Adams, you're looking at two very high profile chances to accumulate, one with a lot of touchdowns, Puka with a lot of yards. And again, they could fizzle out. But when we look at the opposite side of the ball, the only Super Bowl you're like, here's the thing. The other side of the ball, we're looking at Houston, New England, Buffalo, not offering a lot of receptions to wide receivers over the last 4 games. If the Chargers make it to the Super Bowl, that's the best matchup for these wide receivers. Likewise, Denver would also be a pretty good matchup, and the Steelers wouldn't be terrible. But Houston, Buffalo, New England, all would be pretty tough matchups conceivably for you're good, Mick. Would be all good matches for Adams. So if I'm thinking where I'm going to want to go, I do definitely would love to see it, would love to build out the Jags again, would love to build out the Chargers potentially, because that would be the optimal matchup for the Rams. It would also be one of the most optimal matchups for the Jags and the Chargers as well. Not having a running back yet does suck. Some interesting builds there. Kyron McCaffrey and Nico from Nated there. I think that's getting those 2 running backs is going to be nice. Another early Myers. So he's obviously going to build out that Seattle Jags, trying to plan out Ken Walker a little bit probably. So here we have another Super Bowl, Buffalo, Philly. Super Bowl, you're building out New England. All right, so we're going to actually build out Harvey and Sutton. We know that there's a chance that they don't play, so we are going to build out some other advanced rate pieces to help us out. When we look at quarterback performances against these defenses, Denver's allowing 18 points per game over the last 4 games. Over the course of the season, that number goes down. But in the last 4 games, it's looking better. They're offering around 29 pass attempts. So that Super Bowl wouldn't be as terrible for a guy like Matt Stafford with a lot of attempts coming out. So this R-Lub right here with Buffalo, Philly, if it ends up being a Buffalo-Philly Super Bowl, having both of those quarterbacks can be very beneficial. Looking at the quarterback numbers, though, When we think about fantasy points per game, Philly's offering about 11 over the last 4 games, and Buffalo's offering about 17. So it might not be as good of an advantage as we think. Over the last 10 games, Buffalo's at 13, Philly's at 13. So that Super Bowl might not be a lot of points on the table there. We're going early Bears on that side, early there. Maybe we get left with Bo Nix. Everybody's pretty much staying in their lane here. Curious how that gets built out. So we go Bo. Go Corum for a Super Bowl potentially. I think maybe I'm going to wait on him. Let me see. We're going to grab him for the Super Bowl if this ends up being a Super Bowl. We have potentially. Now, the other thing, too, is that I think is really interesting, guys. If you're with us, we are Local Football Flavor. We put out content almost every week except for last week due to the holidays. I think one of the other interesting things, and a couple other creators out there have been talking about this to a degree, is what happens if a guy like J.K. Dobbins returns in the Super Bowl? Well, he's been hurt for quite some time. Maybe nothing. But there's potential there that something happens. And we might want a little piece of that action. Just something to think about, not something to over-invest in. But if you are looking at something to maybe get by, I think that I would be looking in that direction. With Denver potentially getting this bye, we're going to probably mess with some stacks in a minute because I don't fully trust that. All right. So we're going to take Woody because I need an advanced piece most likely. And then we'll take I need an advanced piece. We're going to take Luther Burden as an advanced piece. Mick, you don't have much NFC stuff left, which is kind of annoying about Jacobs and Swift left early. Yeah, that's the other thing is that when you're building the NFC side, it feels a lot easier to backstack. It feels a lot easier to backstack the Chargers and the Jaguars, to be honest with you. And I think that I'm very comfortable like de-investing early in the NFC, but the NFC has so many power hitters. Like if you look at the top half of this draft and you look at the first 3 rounds and we look at NFC, you see NFC, 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 NFC. So, I mean, there's quite a bunch of guys to really lock in on for the NFC. And the AFC is just like, okay, we got Nico. Nico's thrown out a bad game before. Do I want to overinvest in Houston? Maybe not. So if we have a Denver Rams Super Bowl, we got Stafford, Adams, Harvey, Corum, Bo Nix, Cortland Sutton. If we have Davante Adams, Matt Stafford, Woody. We could go with a back end Houston potentially here with Higgins and Newell. Get us a little bit frisky there. Because I do think that when it comes down to it, if Denver were to advance to the Super Bowl, we're looking at guys like any one of those guys could pop. Troy Franklin, Mims, Bryant. Do we want to capitalize on that? If we get there, sure. So I think right here, we're going to queue up Franklin and we'll queue up one of the tight ends. Probably queue up Ferguson here. Just because we want to get some advancement there. We know, especially with Davante Adams' health, who's to say that he's actually going to be playing a full playoff game? He should be healthy enough by then, but we'll have to really revisit that there. I like the Patriots, Seattle going after Booty. My boy Mac Hollins placed on injured reserve. Don't like that for him. Do I want another one of them, or do I want to take Colby? All right, we're going to go Troy Franklin. So ideally here, we do want a Denver Rams Super Bowl. We have some good ammunition from that. The only thing that I do have a concern about is when we look at total rushing opportunities against the Rams, it's not like a blessing. If it's a Rams-Denver Super Bowl, I'm not really locked in for Corum. I don't really like Kyron if that's the case either. So I think this was a good room here, Mick. I like that back one of getting some Seattle, New England. That would be interesting if both of them end up getting the number 1 seed. I'd be really curious about that, how that would pan out. The pathway is there, but it's not very likely. All right, so let's get another mitten in here. I'm liking the way that these rooms are working out for us right now. So we're going to queue up another one, guys. So we appreciate you joining us here on New Year's Eve. Like I said earlier, Joe was sick, so we're going to try to roll in a couple more of these. Everybody's getting a little bit wild and crazy with these sicknesses that are going around. I'm sure other people are having the same thing happen. All right, we're gonna go out and we're gonna refresh, guys. So hold on 1 minute. See, it lets you do 2, and then right around 4:30, like happened last time, it loads and then it screws us over. So we're gonna load up another Underdog draft. If we have to do it from our phone, we'll do it from our phone. No big deal. Ideally, I'd like to do it on the computer because I feel like you get a little bit more love on the computer. So let's see. We're going to queue up another one. Mitten 2. And I like getting into this tournament a little early here. Put it on the phone. All right, hold up, guys. Let me get it on the phone. Share screen. We want to invite guests. So, all right. We'll load it up on the phone first, guys. And we still have Week 18 too here. Week 18 is probably going to get us a couple of interesting matchups, to be honest with you. All right, we got 2 more in this draft. So let us share here. All right. Go to draft. So we have 2 more in this draft waiting. 1 is open. And, I know, so when we look at, and for anybody out there that uses Sidekick, Sidekick is really one of those tools that can be a really big benefit for a lot of people. But when I think about how many people are using it and how to get leverage, it feels like you're getting leverage by not using it. The tool is really over investing in Packers. And the other thing is that Jacobs is one of those pieces that I do like. I really do like Josh Jacobs as a player overall. You guys know whenever we were streaming live over the course of the season that he was a player that I really like. But who's to say how healthy he really is? They trotted him out there for a couple of plays. He was set to play, ended up getting 5 carries or 3 carries for 2 yards. I think one of the plays that you might want to be interested in if you think that Green Bay gets it to the Super Bowl would be Emmanuel Wilson. The knees concern me, and he is almost free. And for a player that can pop off for 3 touchdowns, it's nice to have him as almost free. So let's see here what Cut does. Does he take Puka? Does he go Jason? Does he take a running back here? A lot of options. And, we've talked about Saquon. Saquon can hit at any point in time. When we look at the running backs on the AFC side, rushing attempts, We do want to probably take that AFC running back. Taking James Cook will give us a little bit better odds against the defenses of the NFC, where you're only really losing out if he ends up playing San Francisco in a way. But, you know, so we're going to take James Cook here. I also think that James Cook opens up more possibilities for us overall as a build, because you're locking in that running back. As we've talked about before, that running back position is vital. While we won't get Josh Allen, and that's fine. While we won't get him, if we're able to build another side of the ball to get another NFC team in here, do I like I said, I'm not a huge Jalen Hurts guy. I've drafted the Eagles a lot, but am I a huge Jalen Hurts guy? I am not. The Josh Allen, Saquon Barkley Super Bowl, that makes sense because Buffalo has been giving up a lot on the ground, and going Saquon with Josh Allen, that could work. All right. So let's get George Kittle. Now, that's a little high for George Kittle. We know this. It's fine. I'm okay with that. Building out a Buffalo, San Francisco Super Bowl, trying to see a little bit of the pieces that we can get. Hopefully we don't get sniped too hard on a couple of our guys. So building out some Buffalo. And like Joe and I have said before, we're not big Shakir guys, but when we look at pieces that we would want to have in a Super Bowl, if that Super Bowl is against San Francisco, Shakir would be a piece that I want. If the Super Bowl is against Philadelphia, Shakir is not a guy that I want. So that's something to keep our eyes on as well. So we have Travis Etienne, Christian McCaffrey. We do want Puka, AJ Brown. That's nice for AJ Brown. If this was going to be the NFC Championship game, I like that a lot, to be honest with you. And having Matt Stafford might slide down here to this Devontae Adams guy. He's really got to think here. Does he want Jalen Hurts or does he want Matt Stafford? And use Puka as an advanced piece. Be really interesting to see. All right, we are going to take Purdy. And like I said, I know it's early, but sometimes we got to build out what we want. Every draft is a little bit different. Building out what you want, being able to position yourself into certain guys. Like I said, I want to get Juwan Jennings on the comeback. Taking Purdy now allows me to get Jennings and potentially Shakir. This guy might take Shakir right here, but he might also take Devonta Smith and Goddard. The world's his oyster. Personally, I'd go with the two Eagles. That's fine. We didn't get Shakir. We'll try to position ourselves into Kincaid. Could these guys have taken Brock Purdy? Sure, maybe. And the other thing is, with Kittle's health, this might be a team too, where maybe in the 10th round, we take Jake Tongas. Again, there's a lot of possibilities here. We're going to leave Hurts on the table. All right, so Jennings got taken. That sucks. That sucks big. All right, so let us then try to grab some. All right. We're going to take Hampton. We're going to pivot into the Chargers build, guys. Lost out on our San Francisco build with Buffalo, so we're going to go San Francisco with the Chargers. We're not going to play around. Now, I like Jennings a lot. This guy's got Stafford and Hurts. Really interesting there. Here, we're going to see probably a couple of Jags come out. All right. So let's see what we want to get in here. Do we want to mega do that? All right. We are going to probably take Jacobs here. Like I said, I'm not a huge Jacobs guy. I don't really think that they make it to the Super Bowl. If he does play, though, he could be a great piece. Swift, also one of those plays. I think maybe we'll go Swift here. And like I said, I'm not a huge Dalton Kincaid fan. I'm not a huge Shakir fan. I think both of those guys can bust out hard in any round. So a little annoying that we didn't get a lot of the San Francisco. We wanted Jennings, didn't get him. We're going to try to get Pearsall here as well, but we don't want to have too many 49ers here if they get that first round pick. So we're going to build out the Chargers as well. Swift is in there just in case we build out the Chargers, and we want to build out Luther Burden a little bit later. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 picks left. We don't need Caleb. We're probably going to go Lad here. It's fun to see RJ Harvey still on the board. There's a lot of Denver still on the board. That's wild to me. I have not seen Denver fall this much. Typically, we've seen Cortland Sutton in the 4th. We have seen Bo Nix go much later, but there's potentially a lot of value there. So we're going to go Lad. And we might not want to wait too much longer to take Herbert. We're going to queue Herbert up as potential San Francisco Chargers Super Bowl. Want to get QJ in here too. We want to get Gadsden in here as well. We want to also queue up Burden if that's going to happen. But Herbie is the priority. So he's got a lot of nothing on that side. So we'll see. But I do it's weird to see a back stack at Denver because Denver's been that front stacked for so long. So it's interesting to see how other people are playing the game with that in mind. So we have a couple of quarterbacks off the market. We're just going to take Herbie. Getting a week of rest. Hopefully that helps him out a lot. Again, some of these rooms it works out and some of them it doesn't. So, if it ends up being Chicago Chargers, we got a little bit of action on that. If it ends up being Chargers San Francisco, we got a lot of action on that. So I think here, and again, there's a lot of presupposition that Baltimore's going to win. We talked about the possibility that the Steelers do. If the Steelers win, a lot of this is going to be dead in the water. And I think that the Steelers are not a team that could definitely make a run, but they're a team that's very interesting at the very minimum. All right. So hopefully we can get QJ here. See, Josh Jacobs still on the board. We're down here almost at round 10, and Jacobs is still available. Still. Right? So it definitely is something to be aware of. It's very curious. Right? So we're going to we took Luther Burden there in the off chance that we get a Chargers Chicago Super Bowl. We have a full lineup if we have a Chargers Chicago Super Bowl. We have 4 players that potentially pop off. If we have a San Francisco Chargers Super Bowl, we have a full roster. George Kittle, or we're one away from a full roster there. So we didn't get Pearsall. Fine. I'm cool with that. I like Ricky, but again, maybe not playing in that first game. Here we're going to take QJ. And we're probably going to either end it with Gadsden, but if Jacobs is still there on the last pick, I don't see a reason not to. I mean, having 4 running backs could definitely get you out of the first round. We're going to sacrifice. We've got one more pick left after this. We're going to sacrifice the build just a little bit here, and we're going to buy Josh Jacobs. Only Packer, but again, weird things have happened. If this is a Chargers-Packers Super Bowl, I just need to take one more Charger, and we've got a Super Bowl. We've got Jacobs. We've got Ladd. We're either going to get QJ or Gadsden. Not both of them are going to get taken. And then we have Herbie. So typically speaking, do I build that 4 running backs often? Not a lot. But it became available to us. And I mean, we could be dead in the water after round 1. That's always a likelihood that stuff like that can happen as well. So am I upset about it? Not so much, but this is the latest Jacobs has been on the board. So that is something else to consider. So we started this out wanting to build out a San Francisco stack with some Buffalo players. We took Purdy a little bit early, which closed us off to Shakir, and that's fine. So we pivoted from that San Francisco build. We lost Shakir and Jennings because that pick right here was going to be Jennings. But we pivoted. We potentially have a couple Super Bowls here. We have a San Francisco Chargers Super Bowl. Obviously, I think Christian McCaffrey would be the player to own in that Super Bowl. But like I said, stranger things have happened. We have a live Chargers Green Bay with the 2 running backs plus 2 wide receivers on the Chargers side. We have a live Chargers Chicago with 3 wide receivers here and 2 wide receivers. So we have the possibility for 3 different Super Bowls. And I don't think that they're weak options as well. So I think we did pretty good there. We're going to queue up another one coming at you from the phone to the screen. So we're going to queue up another mitten. And depending on how this goes, this could potentially be our final one of the stream for today. Again, just a quick New Year's Eve stream. We know you can take your content in other places, but we appreciate you joining us here today. So this draft is starting soon. So we have a couple of shields in here. Let's rock it out. Sitting here at 4. So there's a couple of things that we could do here as well. Typically, like I've said, when I'm the 101, I'm taking Puka. I'm not taking as much Christian McCaffrey. I have. Looking at the defenses on that side of the ball, when we look at total fantasy points per game, Buffalo is giving up a lot. So if you're building out some Buffalo guys and you want to take Buffalo, San Francisco, like that, those 2 matchups for running backs are probably one of the better ones in the Super Bowl that you can get. But again, the wide receiver room on that would be a little bit rough. And it sucks too when you're building out Buffalo that we might not get you might get a whole bunch of Brandon Cooks. You could get Tyrell Shavers. And as advanced rate pieces, they suck. But when you get to the Super Bowl, those guys could really matter. So that's a team that's going to be hard to push into the Super Bowl. But if you have people like that, and like we've said before, a bunch of crazy things have happened in Super Bowls before. So we are going to take Saquon here. And this might just be a Saquon, Jalen Hurts, maybe Saquon, A.J. Brown, Jalen Hurts. Obviously, I value those. If I'm building Eagles, those are the 3 I value. That's not to say that Dallas Goedert can't have a great game. When it comes to tight end targets, Jacksonville, Denver, and the Steelers, it's quite a bit. So we're going to build out A.J. Brown there. So when we look at targets to tight ends, like I said, Jaguars, Denver, Steelers, New England, and Houston all offer a good amount of targets to tight ends. So if I am building out the Philly side of the ball, I really would want to invest in Dallas Goedert over Devonta Smith. So that's probably what I'm going to do. If I can get Jalen Hurts here at this pick, I will get Goedert coming up possibly in the 5th round. And I'm going to ignore Devonta Smith. This is a choice. Again, ignoring Devonta Smith can really, 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 really play with you. But this is a team that if you want to, you can build out of Denver as well, right? Denver with Philly, that is a very likely Super Bowl. And then taking some advanced rate guys, they can move you past the 1st round if that's what we want to swing. So we're going to go with Hurts there. And like I said, I'm probably not taking Devonta Smith. If they want to take Devonta Smith, that's fine. I'm probably going to signal myself in RJ Harvey if he's there. Okay, RJ Harvey's out of the discussion. And like I said, if this is an Eagles Super Bowl, I really don't like any of the pieces on the opposite side of the ball, from the AFC to really make any noise. So I'm not chomping at the bit to get anybody realistically, unless it's a running back. So we're going to play this out with Omarion. If this is a Chargers Philly Super Bowl, we've got 2 instrumental pieces. Saquon should do very well against the Chargers, and so should Omarion, depending on that playthrough. When we look at targets for tight ends, Philly's not giving up a lot of targets there. Neither is Oronde Gadsden. So depending on the Super Bowl we have, it'd be interesting. I'm very curious if Devonta Smith makes it back to me. If he does, I'll take him. And looking at T-Felt here over in the 6 hole, taking 3 running backs. And again, this is a team that, you're taking a lot of NFC pieces and you want them to click, and pivoting when you need to pivot. But when I look at this and I say, okay, I took Jacobs in the last one in the 9th round. Here you're taking them in the 4th round. That's typically where he's going, 4th, 5th round, but you're getting 5 rounds of value. I took 5 other players that weren't Jacobs. Is it the best team that we drafted today? Maybe not. But we'll definitely have to play for that. And because I have all these Philly guys, I think I only might get contested on Devonta Smith if from this Jags guy or from this Allen guy. So we'll see what happens here. All right. So we lost out on Smith. That's fine. We're going to take Goedert here. Not quite sure why he did that. Doesn't really have a build yet. And like I said, if this is a Chargers Philly Super Bowl, we're live with just 1, 2, 3, 4. We're live here for a Philly Super Bowl no matter what. We do have to take another piece, but we're live for a Philly Super Bowl no matter what. So like I said, Devonta Smith isn't super vital to me. He can pop off, but there are going to be plenty of teams that have him. And it's not going to be end of the world if we don't, I think. So we're going to ignore that. We'll build. All right, so we'll build out Ramondre here. If this ends up being a Philly New England Super Bowl, we're live. If it ends up being a Philly Chargers Super Bowl, we're live with a couple of great pieces that can help us advance as well. So not dead in the water there. We're going to build in some back end. Like I said, you could build Philly however you want. But again, so if I'm building out Philly here as well, and I'm thinking it's going to be Philly Chargers Super Bowl, maybe Ladd isn't the best guy that I want to build out. Because as we've established, Philly over the last 4 games, etc., have been pretty good against the pass. And Quinion Mitchell, etc., has been pretty lights out. So, is it something that we want to get at? Yeah, maybe. Maybe playing Zach Charbonnet there would have been better, right? Get us something from the other side of the ball so that we could build out Justin Herbert as well. And anything can happen. We could still get probably Sharps here on the comeback too. He could be a dead piece to us, right? We only need 2 running backs theoretically. Running backs do tend to score a bunch. We have Trevor Lawrence is probably going to go off the board soon. So that's not terrible. So we want to give ourselves some to be live. Because again, when we look at it here, you want to have 1 quarterback, 1 running back, 2 wide receivers, and a flex. We have 2 wide receivers for Philly. We have a running back for Philly. We have a quarterback for Philly, and then we're just trying to figure out that flex. So losing Zach Sharps there sucks. We're going to take QJ here. And then we'll probably take we might take Ladd. Like I said, I'm not a huge Ladd guy against Philly. Let's be honest. I don't think he's going to perform well. But if they get there and Philly doesn't, it's going to turn out pretty well. So we're going to take QJ here at 8. We have a live Philly. We have a live Philly Chargers Super Bowl. We have a live Philly New England Super Bowl. Maybe we want to get another piece from New England. I do like Parker Washington overall. Kayshon Boutte could pop off. Like I said earlier on the show, I did like Mac Hollins, but with the IR designation, we can't pop into that anymore. But if it's a Philly New England Super Bowl, do we really want the wide receivers from New England? Really? I don't know. I don't think so. So Parker Washington could be an advance rate piece. So I'm going to queue him up. If we do make it to the Super Bowl and we have the Jags Philly, Parker Washington completes our Super Bowl as well. Best pieces, most optimal pieces, maybe not, but it's another Super Bowl possibility for us where we have live players. So there we go with Dobbins filling out a Denver Rams Super Bowl, a low-end Denver Rams Super Bowl, but a high-end Rams Super Bowl. There goes Mac. Maybe Mac comes back healthy to play into his San Francisco New England Super Bowl. There goes Dalton Schultz to finish off his Houston Philly Super Bowl. All right, so we're going to take a Parker Washington. Parker Washington gives us a Philly Jags. We have Philly Chargers. Now, we didn't take an NFC wide receiver, so it doesn't make any sense for us to build Justin Herbert. We can, but again, doesn't really make quite a lot of sense. If the Steelers make it, would we want DK? DJ Moore. I'm shocked that Juwan Jennings is still on the board. Like, what is this Brock Purdy guy doing? He left Juwan and Pearsall on the board. That's insanity to me. Do we want to take Herbie? Yeah, I mean, no. Maybe. We'll take Brenton Strange. We'll take Brenton Strange, give us another Super Bowl advancement piece. As I've said earlier, when you look at the quarterbacks, you could go a bunch of different directions here. Jennings lasting all the way down into the last round here. You are going to have some guys. There's our first Steeler. I don't know how much sense that makes. If you were going to do that, you should have built out Steelers on the front side of that. A lot of Patriots wide receivers happening in that round. All right, guys. So we are going to be back at it Monday of next week, 3:45 Eastern Standard Time. We appreciate everybody who came and joined us today. Like, follow, subscribe. And as always, feel free to leave any questions or comments that you have in the chat on this video. Have a great New Year's, and we will see you Monday, 3:45. Local football flavor out.